Yo, how's it going? So in this video, I want to talk to you about how to actually improve at editing fast. Just proof on what I've done, who I am, why I have any right to speak about any of this. I have my portfolio and I've got my work to a point where I've got animations looking like these. I can bang millions of views pretty consistently now on my clients' videos. And if I just go on to my Twitter, like if I go into media, this is the sort of work.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I'll to the museum!
Like these cool animations and stuff. And obviously, I didn't come out of my mother's womb knowing how to do these animations. So between the point that I was born and the point that I am now, I had to learn it, which means you can learn things too. No one that is good at editing was born with it. They just know how to learn better than you. So in this video, we're going to go to the board of truth and justice, and I'm going to teach you how some of the best editors learn. And here's the thing, this is going to be a lot of theory based, but I promise you, once you start thinking like this, you'll realize that you've been learning in a super inefficient way. And I promise, like, if you can just take one thing away from me, let it be this concept, because once you learn how to learn, everything gets so much better. So essentially, there's two ways of you learning how to edit. There's the A to Z method, and there's a second, which you'll have to wait for the name for that. Let's talk about the A to Z method. This is what most people use. A to Z method is where you essentially watch a long tutorial and then you implement. So you basically research. We can just switch out long tutorial for research and then implement. So you learn a thing, you learn an effect, you learn a workflow, you learn how to do this style, and then you go off and try it. So let's go on YouTube actually. Let's see what this might be if you were someone that was trying to do this. Let's say how to edit on Premiere Pro. Okay, cool. So you have all of these videos where a beginner could watch and you could learn how to edit. And in fact, if you are super new, you might even do full Premiere Pro tutorial. And you've got these super in-depth tutorials where it's like, oh my God, this is amazing, godsend, awesome. So maybe when you are editing, you went and watched these. And here's what might have happened. You watched a super long tutorial. You finally completed it. You feel accomplished. And then you go onto your computer, you open up Premiere Pro, and you forget the exact thing that you just learned. So what you go do is you run into a problem, and then you don't remember how the guy solved it on the video. You know you solved it somewhere, so you go back onto the video, you're watching it through, and you don't remember if it was at 1 hour 15 or 4 hours 28. So you just kind of rummage through the video, realize it's taking too long. Then you go on Google, then you search it up, and you find the answer, and then you solve the problem. So basically, you solve the problem without even needing the full tutorial in the first place. This happens again and again, and honestly, you don't even remember 99% of the things that you watched in the full tutorial. And here's the thing, these tutorials, this is not me saying they're bad. In fact, some of these people, they're genuinely my friends. Like, I'm in the editing space, like Tavin here, like Tavin is someone I speak to. This is not me saying that his tutorials are bad. I watch them, I learn from them. But there's a more effective way of using these tutorials. And if you learn how to use this, instead of getting like 3 minutes of value from a whole video, you'll actually be able to take in all that information and it's actually useful. So instead of A to Z learning, which has the flaw of essentially overwhelm and you not being able to implement things, you're going to use a different type of learning. What this is called is problem-based learning. Don't worry about my cousin being at the back. We're in Spain right now. We're just on a short little trip and I wanted to record this video for you. So you're not allowed to complain about him. Fuck you. You take the video or leave, bro. Shitty ass production quality. So the second method is called problem-based learning. What that essentially means is you're almost getting rid of this research part. In fact, you're not getting rid of it completely, but there's a step before research that you're putting in. Because remember, when you research first, you're just shooting in the dark, hoping that, what the hell was that, thumbs up? You're just shooting in the dark, hoping that something that you learn comes into use. There's a lot of information online, as I'm sure you've noticed. As I'm sure this isn't the first video you've watched about how to improve editing. There's clearly a better way. Here's the better way. And I'm going to show it to you in the form of a flowchart, which is basically, this is how I think subconsciously, but this is a way for me to almost materialize it so you can model the same thing. This flowchart starts off with one key step that every single person watching this video, including you, should be doing. You edit project. So you're editing project. You're literally like, this is the actual act of editing. And it sounds so silly that I need to say this. You would be surprised how many editors are not held back by presets. They're not held back by clients. They're not held back by their workflow. They're not held back by their effects. They're not held back by their parents. They're not held back by the amount of time that they have. They're not held back by their PC. They're not held back by any of these things. The reason that they're not making the money they want, or they're not as good as they could be, is purely because they haven't edited enough videos. You have no idea how many people I see that they'll come to me asking, why can I not get clients? I'll ask them just a simple question: how many videos have you edited? And they'll be like, oh, I haven't really edited a full video yet. I've done a practice. Or I've done like 2 videos before. You want to be making money and you've edited 2 videos. You want to be charging someone hundreds of dollars, but you haven't even done it like more than a few times. So the first part is you should be editing projects no matter what, right? Notice how up to this point, this is how you start. Did I say research before you edit? No. Sure, you can go learn the basics, go watch like a 10-minute tutorial, but honestly, you learn more by just like jumping into software and just like fucking around. Literally, I learned Premiere by just like dragging random things around. I watched like a 10-minute tutorial, drag things around after that. So you learn the basics and then you start editing a project. What's going to happen as you edit this project? You're going to be scared because you're scared that, but what if I don't know how to do this certain effect? What if I don't know that shortcut? What if I want to mask something and I don't know how to mask it? What even is masking? Is there an effect that I don't know about that I need? Like, you have all these fears. And what your true fear is, you're scared of making mistakes. And you're scared of essentially facing a problem. But here's the thing. The next step in this process is quite literally problem arises. I'm giving you the framework for learning, and I'm telling you the second step, like one of the first few steps that happens, is you've run into a problem. You cannot learn without a problem. Trying to learn without a problem, when you don't have a problem that's clearly defined, you're lost. And what you'll end up doing is try learning everything. And how did that end up? So you running into a problem is a good thing. When you run into an edit and you're working on a project and you think that, oh, I don't know how to do this effect. Oh, people in this niche always do it in this style, but I don't know the style. Or what's that one shortcut of doing this? Oh, there's a bug that keeps coming up. Instead of being afraid of it, it's okay to run into them. In fact, I want you to run into them. I promise you, the editors that are better than you, it's not that they knew the special effects or they knew something special that you didn't. They just ran into more problems and solved more problems, which I'll show you how to do now. So once a problem arises, you're going to ask yourself a question. Is this solvable with my current knowledge base? And what that means, it's a question, right? So it's with a question mark. The problem that you've just run into, can you actually solve it with what you already know? You might be scared to start a project. Like, you might not even want to do this because you're so scared that like maybe you don't know enough. Maybe you get imposter syndrome that my work isn't good enough for me to start editing. That's why like almost your insecurity comes out, your perfectionism comes out in the form of you watching videos, maybe even you watching this. You'd be surprised how much you know, bro. Like, if you're watching this and you've been editing for a little while, like, you know a lot more than you think. Sometimes it's literally about trusting yourself to just do it. Like, you know how to use the transform effect. You know how to move things around the screen. It's okay to just try it, and you'd be surprised how many times you'll just try it for like 20 minutes and you end up getting it right without even needing to research. So a lot of the time, it'll turn out that, yes, it actually is solvable with your current knowledge base. And in that case, pretty simple, implement. So notice how up to this point, we've done no research. Like, look at this, we're editing a project, a problem arises, so we don't know how to do this effect, or I don't know how to cut, or I don't know how to mask, I don't know how to track smoothly. And it turns out you actually knew it. And here's the thing: there's two sort of ways that your knowledge could pop up. Why are there birthday balloons coming up? Mac is a strange computer. But first of all, it could be like direct knowledge. So it could literally be like you ran into a problem and you didn't even know that you could solve it. As in, like, you wanted to track smoothly and it was already something you knew, you just thought you didn't know it, and then you try it out and it turns out you knew it perfectly. The second one is sort of like it's transferred skills. So maybe you don't know how to solve the exact effect. Maybe you don't know how to solve this exact bug, this exact problem, but you've done something similar in the past that is sort of related. So let's say you want to do an animation where it bounces up and then it spins. Maybe in the past, you've already done an animation where it bounces up. So you've basically done half of it already and you can kind of use that. And now it's like the spin thing, you've done a spin in some different video and you just put the two things together and now you can kind of do it. So it's like it's transferred skills from another area. Or maybe you've just done something similar in the past that you can now implement. So yeah, that's your current knowledge base. You implement it, awesome, you're done. And yeah, that's basically it. But what happens if it wasn't solvable with your current knowledge base? Let's say you run to a problem which you can't solve, which maybe you can imagine something now. Just think about, like, genuinely do this. Within the last few videos that you've edited, where would you say you kind of got stuck? Maybe you did solve that problem. Maybe you were so scared that you got off and didn't try it. But like, there's probably a time where you wanted to do an effect that you didn't know how to do. Or you wanted to do a shortcut that you didn't know how to do. Or you saw this other person do this technique that you wanted to do, but you didn't know how to do it. It wasn't in your knowledge base. What if the answer to this is no? That's all right. Here's what you do. It's a word you may have heard before. It's research, and more importantly, test. In fact, we're going to put this in two boxes because that's how flowcharts work. Oh fuck, I took away the whole word. Sorry, bro. Research, and then it moves on to test. So when you have the problem, then you realize you can't solve it. Now you go onto YouTube and you search it up. You go onto Google and you literally search it up. You can go onto Reddit, you search it up. You go onto Quora. These are some good websites that tend to have like good responses. You can go into like Premiere Pro's forums. You can go onto like, you just search it on Google and basically you go into like some random fucking Russian website that half the language you don't understand, and then you click translate in the top right and it somehow has someone 8 years ago who solved the same problem. Like, you've researched like that. And the thing is, you might not have the perfect answer straight away. You might Google it and there's like this one Reddit thread that says a possible solution. As soon as you find something that might work, you go on to test. You actually have to try implementing it. As soon as you find something that could potentially work, there's no point trying to find other solutions, because what if this one works? So you might actually have a testing phase, and then you move on to the next decision, which is, has this problem been solved? So you had a bug, you searched it on Google, and you found a Premiere Pro forum where someone had the same problem 6 years ago, and you tried it. And sometimes you're going to find out it works. And if the answer is yes to whether it's been solved, awesome. So if it's been yes, implement it. Your problem's been solved. Cool. And yeah, sometimes you'll get it first try. Sometimes all it took was a quick Google search. You'd be surprised how many people are so incompetent that they won't Google search. Like, you can solve most things on Google. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Like, you'd be surprised how many times I will tell someone that, oh, I think you should charge this much. Well, let's say I'm helping an editor. I think you should charge this much. And he'll say something like, oh, I don't know how many how many Australian dollars that is. I only understand Australian dollars, and because I've told him it in dollars. Or I tell him, oh, I think you should charge like $200, and he'll say, oh, I only use pounds. Can you tell me pounds? How long did that take? Was it really necessary to ask the question and try like asking someone when you could have Googled it? You would be surprised how much you can learn from Google. You'd be surprised. And like you can make these super in depth where it's like Premiere Pro freezing black screen, like shit, my bad, the recording bugged, but you get the point. Like you would be surprised how much you can learn just by Googling it, and it'll be the first thing that actually works. In that case, awesome. But what if it doesn't get solved? What if you try it, you try Googling it, you found an article, implemented it, tried implementing it, you tested it, and it wasn't solved? In that case, you take this path. You research again. Notice how the problem wasn't solved, so we still have the same problem. The problem is here. Then we research. And this is after you've already tested once. So it's like most people operate off of this system where they research, then implement. I'm literally telling you, try things first. So problem comes up, try something, see if you can actually solve it. Then you can research and then try it. And it's only after you've tried it, then you can research. I don't know if you've seen that meme of like fuck around and find out. Like this meme, let me see if I can find it.
All right, today we're going to talk about how we can find out and how much we can find out and what it takes to get there. So first we have to decide how much. Here's my graph, and I come horizontally to my gradient line. Where it intersects with my gradient line, I'm going to come straight down to where it intersects with my fuck around line. That there is going to tell me how much I have to fuck around to find out what I need to find out. See, as you can see, the more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out. And also, if you stay down here and you never fuck around, you'll never find out.
This right here. This man right here is a man who is so far ahead of his time. He understood more than all of us, because genuinely, the answer to almost all your problems is fuck around and find out. You would be surprised that if you just tried implementing things, you will solve most things. And this is like a systematized way of thinking it. But if you don't want to learn this, learn this. This whole video can be summarized by this one tweet. So, yeah, so once there's a little bit more, please don't click off. I promise, like, if this man kills my retention because you guys will go watch him instead of me, I'm gonna kill myself, man. But let's say you haven't solved it. That's when you research it and you essentially go through these same things. Some other things are like Discords. You can go to your friends / network. I'll be honest, if you're super new, the friends / network thing isn't going to be as useful, because it's like for example, this is going to sound egotistical, don't care, but like I've gotten my network to a point where like I know all the biggest editors. Like if you name me any big channel, Mr. Beast, Logan Paul, like Marquez Brownlee, like you can tell me any YouTuber, I know their editor. So like when I have a problem, I literally just like go into our group chat and I just be like, yo boys, struggling with this, anyone solved? And within like 10 minutes, they'll be like, yo, yeah, this is the fix, I had it last week. Or I'll just message someone, like one of the editors who are my friends now, on literally like WhatsApp or something. I'll be like, yo bro, I've got a deadline tomorrow and this keeps bugging out, or like I don't know how to do this effect, can you send me something? And they'll like send me the project file. Like that's the sort of network I have now. If you don't have this, which honestly is like one of the faster ways, then like you rely more on these. And one thing I will say is like to build like a network. So basically network isn't like this cringe, oh, let me exchange business cards. Because when you grow up, like when you think networking, it's presented to you as this cringe, let's network, and you like shake hands with like a suit on and you go to these events. That's not what networking is. Networking is basically surround yourself around people who are similar and preferably some that are better than you, and just constantly be surrounded by them, because naturally you'll end up being friends, and as long as you're not a social like retard, you'll end up being nice to them, and people help their friends. Like think about how much more likely would you have been in school to help your friend with a homework compared to a stranger? if you become friends with the best editors and you're just constantly around them in like private areas, like you will naturally just be friends, and then we naturally help each other. Not like, yeah, it's just nice. But if you're not willing to like go with this, at least just like use these, and yeah, then you test it again. Have you solved it? No. Test it again. Have you solved it? No. Research and test again. Have you solved it? No. Research, test again. Oh wait, this worked. Implement. Awesome. And here's another step you're going to do. You're going to implement, and there's one final step. This, technically, you don't have to do. But you're a human, and you kind of do it naturally, and also it really, really does help long term. This is where you get the compounding effects of being a specialist, which we won't touch on today, because that's another whole topic on its own. Once you've implemented it, you add to your knowledge base. This is essentially saying, just subconsciously at least, take a note of what problem you faced and how you solved it. Because what this will do is allow you to learn. In business, a lot of the time, your growth isn't going to look like this. It's not going to be like, oh, 2 months in, you make 1K, and 4 months in, you make 2K, then 6 months in, you make like 6K. Like, that's not how it works. Usually in business, it looks like this, where for a long ass time, you make no progress. And then slowly, like at one point, you're like, oh shit, like it's kind of jumped up randomly. Then it's like, it jumps up really big, then it like skyrockets. That's how business growth looks. And the reason that happens is because basically knowledge compounds on itself. The things that I'm implementing in my business now, and like all the psychological techniques that I use to close clients, and all these like random marketing things that I do so that I look better as an editor, meaning that I get more clients than anyone else. Like, the reason I know a lot of these things, and when I teach you things like this, it's not because of what I learned today. This is not something I learned like yesterday. This is the accumulation of basically tens of thousands of hours of me editing, of me reading, of me speaking to people, of me like basically fighting tooth and nail for any experience that I can get over years. That's what this is. So like, this is where me reading a book 2 years ago, where let's say I read The Psychology of Influence, amazing book, or How to Influence and Influence People, or I read like .com Secrets, like all these amazing books that I would say have genuinely changed my life. Do you think that straight after reading that book, my life significantly improved? I was in college, in the UK, you're in college at around 18 years old. I was in college, and this is when I had fully started getting into reading. I would be in the library during my breaks, reading this book called .com Secrets. There was another one called Atomic Habits, and Oversubscribed was another really good one. I was laughed at for reading those books. And the thing is, it was super demotivating because honestly, it's not like I read that book and I would like the next day make an extra $2,000. Like, that's not how this works. The principles that I learned in those books, I use till this day. It's only now, literally like a year after, 2 years after, I'm using that thing where it's like, oh yeah, I remember I read that thing in this book. This actually fits in this exact situation. Like, a principle in how to win friends and influence people. Something as small as speak in terms of the other person's interest. Where whenever you're trying to convince someone of something, let's say you're trying to get, let's say you missed the deadline and you're trying to tell the guy like, hey, I'm not going to be able to get the video on time. There's different ways that you can say that. You might be scared to say that. You can say it in terms of like, hey, I procrastinated, so I'm not going to be able to get this video done. Or I burnt out, so that's why I'm not going to be able to get this video done. Is that okay? This is going to sound harsh, but nobody really cares if you messed up because of something like that's going to harm you. Sounds harsh as fuck, but to the client, you procrastinating, why should he care? Like, he paid you. Why does he care that you procrastinated? It sounds harsh, but like, you burnt out. That's not his fucking problem. So when you want to give something to someone, like in terms of like a piece of information, or you want to break bad news to someone, you missed the deadline, you want to speak in terms of the other person's interest. That's a principle in how to win friends and influence people. So instead of saying like, oh, I burnt out, you can literally say like, hey bro, like this video is taking a lot longer than I thought. I don't like, is it cool to take a few extra days because I want to make sure like I don't give it a subpar video, or I don't want to like rush the video for the sake of rushing it. Suddenly you switch from I'm handing the video in because I'm a dumbass and I procrastinate, or I'm a dumbass and like I'm burnt out and I'm gonna try using that as an excuse for why I should not give you a video in, even though it doesn't actually affect you and it's not your fault. Two, I just want to give you a good video. And you're not lying. Even if you were burnt out, even if you did procrastinate, like you taking a little bit longer on this video will actually help you make it better. And of course, there's going to be some dumbass, maybe, like hopefully it's not you, that's listening to this and it's like, oh my god, I can just like miss every deadline. I just say that like I'm doing it for your sake. Like I just speak in his interest. Like this is not me saying like use this as a reason to miss deadlines, because honestly that actually makes you make worse progress over time. But I'm saying like inevitably everyone misses deadlines, bro. But me, let's say like 1 in 100 videos, I'll miss a deadline. It doesn't really hurt my brand, doesn't really hurt my client relationships because I speak in terms of the other person's interest. I use that till this day. I learned it like 3 years ago. At the time, didn't make sense. Now it's actually being used. And the more you learn, the more you implement, the longer you stick at things. That's why the compounding growth happens. And this, where you learn something new and then you add it to your knowledge base, when you stick at something for so long, this knowledge base just slowly gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like now, after like years of sticking at the same thing, whenever there's a problem, there's a high likelihood that you've already solved that problem. And even if it's like super far out, it's like likelihood is like you just need to move out a little bit more just to get that, fix that problem. When you're starting out, your knowledge base is super small, and that's not me calling you a retard, that's just me saying it's normal. Like whenever you start something new, your knowledge base is small. If I suddenly wanted to become a pro footballer, my knowledge base isn't the biggest. Like, it's okay. Like you don't have a big knowledge base. But the longer, let's say, I stay at football, my knowledge base gets bigger and bigger. So now it's like, oh, like there's a problem where my foot, I injured my foot. It's like if I was super new and I had a tiny knowledge base, I might not know what to do when I have an injured foot. But let's say I had been playing football, like, and I got to a point where I'm basically dedicating my life to it, and I got this huge knowledge base, and now I injure my foot. I've injured my foot in the past. I've researched people who have injured their feet. Like, I know these are the ways to recover. I know don't do these things. I know do these things. I know this is how you communicate to your manager. I know that this is how you train like, in a certain way where it doesn't make it worse. Like, I have this knowledge, so this problem no longer affects me as much. It's like, whereas your knowledge base gets bigger and bigger, you have more problems that you can solve. And this is why you get the compounding growth. So yeah, this is how you learn, and bye.